Could you believe that we're actually at another Tuesday night here in the June of 2023? Wow. Amazing. Happy for you to be here. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited about tonight's show. I'm excited always about the shows because we get to talk all about marketing and mindset and business and entrepreneurship and all that kind of stuff. And we even get to vent a little bit, which is probably where this whole thing's gonna go. I'm predicting that because I'm in one of those moods. I started off the week. I don't know if you saw it. Actually, it's only Tuesday, and I'm thinking the week like it's already gone, Scott. But I don't know if you saw it. I posted yesterday about starting off the week really angry about some things, which prompted this conversation. So on that happy note, so like hopefully you're having a good day.
I am having a great day, and it's interesting because I was out and about, and I was like, oh, that's right, it's Tuesday. Cool. Uh, but for me, I messaged you. I was like, you know what, dude? Like the last week or so, I've just gotten really tired of the BS I'm seeing out there. Just the whole energy mindset of the I have to convince you to believe in something that you don't believe in, and I'm going to use sales sleazy NLP stuff to help you give me money for this opportunity that you then get to go. It's like, well, where did they wake up? It's just, yeah. So, and then you were like this. So great to be here as always on Tuesday night, Joey. Thanks.
Yeah, welcoming everybody here on the live as well. If you hear live, hashtag live or hashtag replay if you're watching the replay by any chance. And so tonight, I've had a lot of discussions, a lot of emails back and forth from people who are, looking at the questions that I've posed out and gave as gifts and things like that for people to hire like A players. And, I'm not a HR specialist, but I've been darn good at filtering out BS. And it's just one of the gifts that I have as well, but also, teaching other people on how to ask the right questions and even getting people just to be able to filter out somebody immediately, relatively quickly. And so that's what I want to talk about today is, I see, as we've talked about it so many times that when people come to me, it's unfortunate that most of them screwed over and they're broken, not because of them, but the other people who break them financially, emotionally, physically in terms of exhaustion and all that. And it just really pains me to watch all of that. And so I have to fix a lot of stuff, which is part of what I do. It's part of my genius. That's great. And I don't mind it. But it's like, if I can get to people, or we can now help other people, not get to that point, because when they're hiring somebody else, this is not about a coaching, like a pitch to hire you or me.
Nope. Nope.
But it's more of like, if we can solve the problem before they get to us, at least for me, I don't want to speak for you, but for me, get to that point where I can then take them and do my genius, it'll be a whole lot easier for everybody. So any input
I'm
on that? Any thoughts before we get started?
Yeah, ditto, Joey. It's the same thing, is to take people before they get to it and build a solid foundation in what I do. Same as what you do, is get it so that they don't have to go through all of this eh, sleazy, cheesy BS bro marketing that sells them their dream. Not our dream, but their dream. It's like, hey, I got rich and I did this, that, and that. Now I'm going to show you how to do it. But that's not my dream. What if we found out their dream and really helped them be happy in that, not selling something else? So I'm in full agreement with you because it's gotten so bad. Like I thought it was bad, but it's gotten badder.
How do you, or do you, screen anyone to work with you on your team? How do you do that, or do you do that, or whatever? Like any
No,
tips?
I
That's
do it. It's the biggest thing for me is engaging with anyone. Obviously, is show me what you've done. More importantly, show me who you've done it for that's succeeded in the realm of what I want you to do. and I want to talk to them. I learned that a long time ago when I would hire people to help me market because I didn't know anything about it back then. And I realized I got somewhere from something. It was like, okay, so how much money have you made doing the exact thing that you told me you're going to do for me? What successes have you had? Tell me that and who. Or what have you learned? And show me your stuff. It's not, I got to see what they've done. If I'm going to have somebody do X, Y, and Z, I want to see X, Y, and Z and how it's been done. If you're going to write copy, show me copy. You're going to build me a website, show me 5 or 10 really good ones. Let me talk to the person. What was the experience? And then tell me why you're doing this. And going into a lot of the questions that we ask our clients is, why do you want to do this? And how long do you want to be doing it? And what do you want to get out of it? And where is your dream and happiness and joy? And it's just so important to start it out that way. And I always talk about divorce in mind in the end. If this doesn't work out, how do we get out of this thing in the right way so that everybody's still happy and nobody hates each other? And a lot of people don't do that in building anything and in hiring people. And it's unfortunate because we see it. They get taken advantage of. Their money is taken for something that doesn't fulfill the promise. I'm going to give it back to you now because I could keep going on this.
Yeah, so I want to um, draw out some major points for the context of the call, because there are A players, which are, obviously the top of the game, A players who you want on your team, and then there are C players. There's the people who they could do their job and all that stuff, but they're C players and they need supervision and all these other kind of things. And there's nothing wrong with these people, but a lot of C player coaches, we're talking now specifically about coaches and strategists and all these people who are claiming that they can move people in momentum and all this, and they're positioning themselves as A players, but they're not. They're C players, and probably they don't even know that they're C players. But I want to be able to clearly define the distinction, because A players are very hard to find, first of all, and that's why I've devised certain things to ask for people. One of the things that I like to ask right away, if I was hiring a coach, and this will go for anything that you're doing, hiring a coach, a strategist, even VAs, whatever. And we'll talk about VAs in a little bit, because I think there's a big distinction when you're hiring VAs, and maybe I'll get some of your input on how you would hire a VA, whatever. But let's talk about coaches and strategists first. The one of the very first questions is, as I ask, how long have you been doing this full time? Like, what is the length of your? Because there's a lot of side hustle coaches, right? That says, I'm going to do this side hustle thing or whatever. I want to know, how long have they been doing it? That's number one. The second question, and these aren't necessarily in order, but one that comes to mind now is, who's your coach? I'm hiring you as a coach. Who is your coach? And that stops them right there. Like, they're like, blah, 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 blah. So with those two questions, what do you think?
I like those as the first two questions, to go back to Seth Godin always, to have them go stand in another line. Because, yeah, you're not, for me, if you're not doing this full time. And it's interesting, I just wrote some copy last week, and it was, this is not a side hustle for me. This is what I do. And if it's a side hustle, then it's not what you do. So how can you help me in your fullest if it's not what you do? And yeah, who is your coach? Totally. If I'm going to coach someone, I've got to have a coach. And anybody in anything has a coach. Why? Because I don't know anything compared to my coach, who knows so much more you and your
Yeah, I'm
coach.
glad you said that, because I think that's really important, that, for anybody who's coaching somebody else, why don't you have a coach? Why aren't you investing in yourself the same way as you're asking me to invest in you? I just think it's BS. I think that anybody who doesn't have a coach, why? And then, so if they do, this, sometimes I get, well, here's the coach. The next question I'll ask is, great. What are they teaching you? What are you learning from them? Tell me something that you've learned. And right away, again, because they're trying, if they're BSing their way through this, because I've had that, I've caught so many people with this, so many people. It's this guy, it's that guy, and they'll name a guru, they name this, and they, really. So tell me exactly what they've been teaching you. Like, tell me something that they, because I know a lot of them, right? So I know, and I've been through a lot of their courses too and everything. So I know them, and I know the insides, and I know enough to be able to say, yeah, right, okay. So, and so you can tell them. So you say, well, then tell me something exactly that they've taught you that you didn't know before, and what has it done for you? Right? So it's making people think on their feet. That's why I like these type of, whatever you want to call them, drilling type of questions. They're spotlight questions. You can't make the stuff up. You can try
Yeah.
to.
No, Joey, they're incredibly deep, qualifying questions, or better yet, disqualifying questions that anybody that hasn't done it with as many people and times that you and I have, and who know, okay, really, you're working with him? I kind of find that hard to believe. And he taught you that? Really? That's not okay, whatever. It's just to save people time again, Joey, save their life.
Yeah.
Well, if you can take these three questions and never ask any others, and they're like, well, that's not really, that sounds like BS. Before you go any further, I like them. I've written them down because I've never asked them that succinctly in those three. But again, it's like your intake. Here's the questions. Listen, are you, how much
Yeah.
have you hired a coach before? How much what are you willing to commit this year? Well, I'm going to $1,000 this year. Okay, there's the other line you need to stand in. Not that that's the issue thing, but it's like I like those three, and I think for anyone listening that's looking to go hire somebody, especially a coach, if you don't get incredible answers, and by incredible, it's like, yeah, I've been doing this for 8 years, 5 years, 12 years, 22 years, 40 years. And my coach is XYZ and is amazing. Last week on the thing and that, just in one thing, he taught me how to do this and really look at how I present something in a totally different way that I've never thought of. That was worth the price of admission alone. And it's like, wow, that's cool. Okay. Rather than, yeah, they taught me how to make a better funnel. Okay. Really? So,
Yeah, exactly. And I just, these are, this is why you can, I'm not, this whole idea here is we're calling a lot of this BS out through this call. Obviously, it's going to be that way, but it's not trying to take someone down or
nope.
disrespect someone who's getting into the coaching industry or anything like that. But we got to pay our dues. You know what I mean? It's like I couldn't really tell people that I was a coach until I hired my first coach and went through my own stuff. I could tell somebody, if somebody asked me the question, like when I started coaching, I don't know, back in 2012 or something, officially coaching, and they asked me, which maybe they did, and they would have said, how many people have you coached? And I've never coached before. Like, I'd be so honest about it. And aside from all that, like, how would the offer look like? What would it like? That's not what we're talking about. But it's like, you gotta put in your reps. You got to put in your reps, and you got to put it in with if you're not hiring a coach, then why should I do it with you, first of all? And even the second thing, or with the third question, there's like a bonus thing to it, which is, who's your coach? What are they teaching you that's improving your life as a client? What are you learning? How is it helping you? And why did you pick that coach? Like, why? And so these are a lot of people who, again, don't have it, or they're just making it up, can't answer these questions. Or they make something up really quickly on the spot, and right away you can catch somebody. By the way, if you're listening to us, if you have any comments or questions that you want to know about, or feedback on some of these things, or something you want us to help you with when you're hiring people, or just let us know in the chat. I'd love to get this interactive thing going, because this is like truly important about hiring the right people and just unmasking all of the fake people out there. And if you want to spend money on people who are making you big promises but can't do the job for you, that's totally up to you. But we're trying to help you before all of that happens. So is there anything, as we started now this conversation, Scott, that comes to mind that now you're thinking, okay, here's how I would fish these people out. Here's how I would filter out. Anything that you would ask or look for or anything like that?
Well, again,
Because
I
you could say
like
you
your.
can go on forever. So
No, I can because uh, I like what you said with your first three. How long? Who is? What are they teaching you? And I like why did you pick that coach?
mhm.
And I'm then going to say, how many coaches have you had? Tell me about all of them. That to me, if I'm going to hire somebody at this point, which I have and will, there was a period when everybody I saw that I wanted to teach me what they knew, I hired them. Didn't matter where they were, I hired them and went and spent whatever it was. And the list is long. If I liked them and that I was doing well, I hired them. I wanted them to coach me, to teach me exactly what it was. I like what you do. Teach me how to do it. You're a great actor on stage. Teach me how to do it. You're a great comedian. Teach me how to do it, and go hire them to coach me so that when I talk about the different things, yeah, I hired them to teach me. I hired him. I hired him. I hired her. All of these people over the years. It wasn't like I took a course online last year and then I got a coaching certification from whatever, and then I decided to coach. I've studied the Glenn Livingstons and the Kevin Hogans and the great, not these guys are all brilliant, wise men. And then again, the list is long of you're the best at what you do. I want to know that. Teach me. And that to me is so important because if they don't have had all these coaches, I can't know anything by myself. You and I talk about this. We stand on the shoulders of so many others. Everything we don't, I can't even remember, but we always, why I respect you, I've said this many times, is
Thank you.
we'll talk about the different people that we learn this from. It's not like, oh, I came up with go stand in another line. No, that's from the practice Seth Godin. Like I told you, I ordered a book again because I want to read it again because I loaned it to someone highlighted. And I thought I'd get back. No worries. We constantly. And so this applies to not just a coach. This is anybody you would hire. If somebody's going to do your Facebook ads, how long have you been doing it full time? Who taught you how to do it? Who's currently teaching you other things?
Right,
Because
right,
if
right,
you're
right.
not currently growing and learning, you're coming back and say, oh, I just met with, the gang and this and my coach and all these amazing things. That just pulls you higher and higher. And if you're just staying here, then I'm not interested, and you shouldn't be interested in hiring somebody that's not doing the same thing. Because if you surpass them, that's not how it should be. They should continue to grow as you continue to grow. Go on.
I think that, like you brought up a couple of good points here that I want to address, which is, you know, the first one that I was going to talk about was, yeah, the pedestal thing. So in a sec, I'll come back to that. The, f- when it comes to, here's where my mind is, it's because you and I have been in this world for a while in terms of studying people and I guess hiring people at the same time, being in their world, and I think that at least for me, I'm speaking about me. I know enough to know when somebody's BSing, and even when they talk about what their thing is. So I know right away when somebody's stealing something else. That's only because I'm so involved in it. Not even before I was, friends with a lot of the bigger people now. Even before that, because of all the studying and books we read and all that. So I know the stuff. I told you the story one time a couple of years ago when I saw some big expert and he stole Eugene Schwartz and didn't give him credit. And it's like everybody knows Eugene Schwartz. You know what I mean? Like, don't try to pull this off on me. That kind of thing. The reason I'm saying this is I'm not trying to stand on a soapbox here and say, look at me, how great I am. It's more of, for anybody listening, that you want to hire somebody in your space to understand what's already in your space, who is already in the world of coaches or helping and all these other things. So you are aware of frameworks, of systems, and all these other things that some dude like me comes along and goes, oh, yeah, I can. Here's my Facebook ad methodology type of thing, right? And you're like, oh, well, I have no idea about Facebook ads, right? And I come along and just spew off the thing, and you have no idea, and I'm not an expert in all that. So what I'm saying is that it's our job. It's not our job only to give questions like this and all that stuff. We have to do the work. We have to understand what it is we're looking for, understand what's going on in the world around us, who's doing the stuff, so that we can get the right people. So I'll leave it there for a second and see what you have to say about that. And while I welcome, I don't know who the Facebook user is, but I'm welcoming Jeffrey and Kay to the podcast.
And that's Lorna. Lorna.
Hi, Lorna.
Yes. Oh, yeah, Joey, again, and we never call anybody specifically out. We're not doing that. We're not ditching anyone. It's more about the methodology and the practices that aren't really moral and ethical when it comes down to people getting taken advantage of. There's already enough out and outright scam and spam and people that wake up every day and intentionally try and steal from you. I'm not saying that some of these people are, because they're doing the best they can. It's just kind of like caveat emptor, let the buyer beware. But that's the way it shouldn't be. So bringing this knowledge to anybody is, it protects them so that if they do decide to invest their money in a coach, and neither you nor I are talking about anybody hiring us, but whoever you're going to hire, if you can make an intelligent decision on really where to put that money, so you don't end up at the end of your rope at a place where you've just been taken advantage of. Because I was there too when I first was in the speaking industry and I didn't know marketing. I hired a guy who was recommended, but I didn't know any of his stuff then. And he knew less than I did about marketing.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I didn't know anything. So, yeah, and so you want to read Kay? You want me to? You read.
You can read it.
I had that experience of hiring an inauthentic coach who grew a multi-million-dollar biz, but her program did nothing for me. So I think a great coach has to have the knowledge, experience, and soul authenticity. Exactly.
So I'm gonna question this, not the integrity of it, the question, because I'm not clear on this. Okay, so maybe you can help me. So because I hear this a lot, this is the reason why I'm asking this question. Because the part where you said her program did nothing for me, I'm wondering if I can just get clarity on that. Is it because she didn't have the experience and knowledge? I just want to make that clear. Because, and I'm not blaming you, this is what I'm saying, because I hear this a lot too, where when people come to me and they'll say, yeah, you've done all this other stuff and I've bought other programs, but even though it did it for them, it didn't work for me. So I'm speaking to a victim. And again, okay, I'm not calling you a victim or anything else like this, but I'm speaking to a victim, right? Where they're like, and it doesn't work for me. Meanwhile, they're blaming the coach. So you got to give some respect to the coaches as well out there that are really trying to do a good job. And it's the actual client who is blaming the thing. So I don't think that's UK, because I'm pretty sure I understand what you're saying there in terms of the experience and all that. But I just want to bring that to everyone's attention.
Thank you, Joey, for asking that to get the clarification. And it brings up an excellent point, because you and I have seen it and that's where the vetting that you've gotten so incredibly good at, and your message navigator should be legend, because it just enables you to really vet people without clarity calls, discovery calls, and wasting a lot of energy and time that we don't have.
Okay, yeah. Sorry to interrupt you, Scott. I just saw her thing come up.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, this is what I thought Okay, so I just wanted to make it clear so that everyone understands this too, that the program was a bait and switch. She did not deliver what she promised. Perfect. Not perfect, but I mean, to the conversation, she didn't even coach. It was another person. Thank you for clarifying that. Just wanted to make sure because, yeah, very cool. Sorry, Scott. Continue, man.
No, that's okay. I was just kind of waiting for Kay. I knew she'd be responding. And it is so true that it's the, I think I mentioned I was watching YouTube something. I walked away, and normally I'll mute or skip the ad, and I like watching the ads. But this one stayed on because I wasn't by the computer. And it was as though somebody hired somebody to write a script that was full of the sleaziest, most NLP-esque, strung together with adverbs and that just it boggled my mind that somebody would string it all together to get somebody to buy something. And again, I've seen in the last couple of weeks some things of people out there with all the and I just decided today that I was going to do this thing with the bonus that I never thought. And then if I watched it the next night, I get the same. It's just all the BS that people actually believe, all of that malarkey. And
Yeah.
that's where it gets into, bait and switch stuff and selling people things that they really shouldn't be, or hiring people they shouldn't be until they know this stuff. And the problem is they've gotten so good at, well, here's all the testimonials of everybody that's all this, and here's my PayPal and my this, and I made $287,614 last month coaching, and now you can too. Go.
Well, this is the reason why we're asking the screening questions and we're having a conversation because aside from all that offer crap and all these things and like that's whatever, you can say anything you want. It's how you respond and it's how you show up in the world. So let me ask you this. Howard, tell me about a time where you failed a client.
Last year, I failed a client.
How?
How I changed the course of the agreement with the client that I should not have done. I went off the rails from the intended project and created a new project out of it, which I should not have allowed to happen. And that was a disservice to the client at the end of the day, because that was not the best interest of the client at the end of the day.
And what did you
And
learn
so
from it?
I learned that once a project is a goal, clarity is put into place, that there is no changing it unless there's a good reason. Both parties rationally, logically figure that it's in the best interest of the client to make this change. And it was not. It was an impulsive change that shouldn't have happened. So that will not happen again.
Yeah. So thank you for playing along with that because that was one of the questions, obviously,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
that wasn't prepared, by the way. I sprung that on you, and I want to
Yeah.
give you props because what you just demonstrated there was sharing a story about how you failed the client, but what more importantly that I wanted everyone to see, and I don't know how it would have went, and either way I would have called you out on if it went the other way, which is where an A player, which is like yourself now, that you're demonstrating, is someone who does not blame the other person, right?
Yeah.
So that's what and that's what you're looking for. So in that conversation, never did you say, well, the client did this and the client screwed up there and the client did that and blah, blah, blah. So I want everyone to hear this because C players blame the world. It's never the C player's fault. It's always the other person. Even if they're sharing a story with you, this is how this screwed up. But it wasn't my fault. I did everything in my power to do this, 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 and this. However, blah, blah, blah. Right? It was raining. Okay? So I just wanted to prove to you of how you call out and find and figure and discover what A players are. Because A players, and here's the reason why this is so powerful, and I'm hoping everybody is hearing this. A players, because of who they are, they're the people who take the ball and run with it. They want the ball, right? They want to fix things. They want to showcase how they can fix things or what they've learned. You hear this from us all the time. We talk about stories like, holy crap, did I ever screw up there? I lost my business there. I went bankrupt here. But then here's how I rebuilt this, or here's what I learned, right? Because we want to share that. That's who we are. Other people are the people that are stuck in the victim mode, or like, it wasn't me, man. I was doing my job. I clocked in and clocked out. I don't know what the hell they did, right? So,
Yeah, totally, completely. Yeah, great. Wow. Yeah.
dude, I told you I was going to get like jazzed up on this one.
I know it's just such powerful stuff because it's so foundationally morally right to do it this way and not go. Yeah, I could have easily pointed out and told a story of things to prove a side of this and that, and it doesn't matter because at the end of the day it was me. I'm the one that created the engagement and agreed to do it, and there's no reason to. And you're right, and I love Kay's got a comment, Lorna's got a comment. Great stuff here. Kay says, "Wow, C players sound narcissistic." I kind of would have to agree with that. A players healthy to take responsibility for outcomes or lack of outcomes. Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
It's,
Yeah, they don't want to blame anybody. And this is, this all started actually from me learning a little bit when I took over my dad's business and, when I had the employees and all these other kind of things and how to flush out people who were just wrong employees and all these other things. And this is where this all started because it was like, there's a problem over here. I'm going to bring you into the office, right? You bring one person in and like, so yeah, you had a problem with Scott. Can you tell me what was going on? Well, Scott did this and Scott did that and Scott blah, 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 blah. Okay, I'm going to bring Scott in. Scott's like, yeah, Joe did this and Joey did that and Joey. I'm like, okay, you're right. You know what I mean? So you could tell because everybody's the other dude's problem, right? So, and then you'd flush them all out. That's where this all started.
Yeah, and again, Joey, coming back to if somebody hasn't failed a client, how can you not have gotten to a successful level without having failed?
Right.
I don't believe it's possible because that's part of success to get there. An overnight success takes time. Every great person wasn't once broken first, the hero's journey. You don't start out as the hero. You got to get your butt kicked and your tail between your legs, and you got to go figure it out. And the only way you can help somebody to not lose their life and everything in their dreams is you had to have gone there yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what we talk about. So again, and no, Joey didn't ask me that. I had no clue. It just, that's what we do here. And I could have gone and said, well, for the most part, and you would have jumped all over.
Yeah, I would have called you out, bro. I'm not afraid to do it. You know what I'm saying? Because there's two parts of that, right?
There is. It's a perfect example that you created of the difference between an A and C player.
Yeah.
Because again, the A player says, yeah, it was all me. It shouldn't have happened. I mean, this is how I failed them, and here's how I fixed it.
Here's how I learned. Even on another point where I went to one interview in my life for a thing, and I knew all this stuff. And so when they ask you tell me like what you've done that's great, or what successes have you had, or like in your department of this and that, it was in like doing technology type of thing, like what successes or what projects have you brought to completion and everything else. And I and I was like, well, before I tell you about what I brought to success, the only way I got there was because I totally screwed up on all these other things. Can I share those with you? And they were like, what the hell? And I was candidate for that because I just totally flipped the script. They're like, because everybody wants to talk about the good stuff. Everybody is like, well, the only way I learned to do this was because I screwed up over here on this. And this is what I learned. And this is why I'm so great at doing this, because I've gone through all of this, right? It's like that story, by the way, I'm going to come back to you, Lorna. The story I just talk about with the real estate investor. Remember when he's on stage and he's like, I've got 50 properties, never had a tenant problem ever in anything else, and give me your money. I'm like, so I'm going to be the guy eventually that's going to give you money when everything goes wrong and you don't know how to handle it. No, thank you. Right. So just like you said, you have to have had some failures in your life. And if you're not willing to accept responsibility for them, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Huge problem. And Lorna, I was gonna bring this up as well. That you're right. That it is totally like now with AI. These are even more important things because my wife actually is doing like she does interviews and exit interviews and all that kind of stuff. And she's on this. I forget what it's called, but anyway, where she's watching people take like the test, right? So they know that they're watching and they're in this courtroom thing. And so they're taking the thing. So she's watching, like, what are they doing? Are their eyes darting down to look for, like, and she's that thing. And I'm like, wow, because you can now easily do that. So you can be on an interview, and I could be typing in, what's the answer to this question? What's the answer to that question? And AI and Chat GPT and all that kind of stuff can give you this stuff. And even we were talking about this the other day. And she's like, yeah, what was that thing that you said about it? Was it chat thingy? I go, Chat GPT. She goes, this person must have gone in there before the interview because every answer was exactly like so perfect. And then when you would talk to her, her English was all broken. Like, the language was not. And I'm like, yep. And that's what you're going to deal with. So these questions or these type of screening things, I think are way more important, because they're not expecting it. That's one of the reasons why, I've had even some coaches even ask for like, can I have those questions? And why? Because you want to prepare for the test and the exam? Is that what you want to do?
Well, and Joey, it's kind of like I recorded a presentation of somebody who did a whole webinar with the pitch thingy, and I'll give you $8 billion of stuff for only this, and I'll give you all the sleazy crap that we don't like. And it was weird because it came from somebody I respect who was kind of an affiliate piece of this. And throughout the thing, the whole premise was creating with chatbots and GPT and AI and this whole melding and morphing of bringing all the traffic to you and all the leads to you using the bots without having to do anything. And then to make sales. If you were to ask a bot these questions, you'd get some really interesting answers. And I think that's what needs to happen is people need to get educated to be asking the right questions that a bot can't answer.
Exactly right. So the bot can't respond as quickly to these things and adapt what's happening. That's why it's so super powerful. Interesting, makes me wonder where I fit. I didn't think I was a D player. Oh my gosh, that's funny. This one's even funnier. I think the schmucks are not even C players. Yeah, it's true. So true. And so here's the other part I wanted to come back to, which was, so if you get somebody on a call and they're telling you about who they are and all that kind of stuff, you have to be very careful about them putting themselves on a pedestal. All the me talk. This is who I've helped. This is who I've been with, and this is all the people we've studied. And all these. I want to be careful about what we're saying here because I don't want to take away from the knowledge piece of it. However, if it's all about them and it's never about you, and they're trying to sell themselves too much, that's a huge red flag. Huge red flag. It has to be about the client. Yes, you want to have credibility and all that kind of stuff. We name drop every single Tuesday and whatever, but it's more about, like we've used Dean Jackson a billion times, so I'll name drop that, but then you turn it around. Like, here's what I learned from Dean about this thing that will help you because you're in this situation.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point. We don't say, oh yeah, I was hanging out, Dean and Joe, and we were like blah blah Genius Network or blah blah here or Matt. We're like, Dean Jackson talks about the 4 C's, and here's why they're important to you, because he was, genius enough to get it out there so that we could benefit from it, so that then we could teach somebody else how to implement it, how important it is, those 4 C's. And And for those that don't know it, we've covered that in the last few shows: the commitment, the courage, the capability, and the confidence. Really important things. Go back and watch the last show or two to talk about that. But again, it's never, you talk about the people you know because you hire coaches and you pay money to be in rooms full of people, not so that you could say you hang out with them and you took pictures with them, which, by the way, is impressive when you do and share them. But no, it's that you've gone and you sought out that knowledge to use for the good, not to
Mm-hmm.
say, hey, guess what? I was backstage with so and so at this thingamathingy and blah blah, and I was at lunch with. When you tell a story about sitting across from a woman who you were like kind of honored that she sat with you, and you were like nervous trying to buy her book or something, and all she did was focus on you and how
Yeah, Trisha
important,
Brook, I love her. I just love her.
right? How important that was and how it made you felt wasn't because, hey, I sat with Trisha and blah, blah, blah. No, it was to use these
Yeah.
people. And that's what a good teacher does, is takes the lessons they learn, tells a story to share it with someone else so that that knowledge continues on. And that's what we do, is we share others' knowledge and not take credit for it. And like I said, I'm writing kind of an outline for that. And in the beginning, it's like, look, a lot of this stuff, I don't even remember where it came from. I've read so many thousands of books and hired coaches and seminars and this. You and I just consume it. I think, oh, that's right. I did read In Search of Excellence, and I did read this by Peters, and that going way back then. And I forget half of the things that I've read, but it all became a part of all this combined knowledge. And I don't need ChatGPT to find the information. Go.
Yeah, and I think that to this point too, like, there's so much we can play off of these things, of like credibility or speaking about people that you know, or and again, you can catch people too because everybody knows everybody's name and all this kind of stuff, and you don't know if it's the truth or not. Did they sit in a mastermind or not, or whatever? Did you go backstage with them or not? Whatever. But I find that when I ask the question about like who they admire the most and the least. Like that's a question I'll say, who is it that you admire the most and the least and why? And if they say Tony Robbins and look at, you know what I mean? Okay, so why? You know what I mean? Like if they're just pulling from the ether, like you can tell. And I might, if you asked me that question, I might say a big name now or whatever, but normally I wouldn't. Normally I would probably go right to my first coach, Greg Habstert, who's a big name still, but maybe not in the right. I would still go there and say, this is the reason why I admire that. This is what I learned from that situation. I might pull a Steve Jobs and say, well, because I love the, connecting the dots going backwards. I just love that. I love the fact that his mentality was like, it doesn't matter what the inside, that nobody sees it, that has to still be perfect and all that kind of stuff. I really love that type of thing because that's who I am. But that's a question. It's like, who do you admire and who do you least admire and what and why?
Yeah, and Joey, just jumping on that as you're saying it, is when we talk about who's a coach, what are they teaching you, why'd you pick that coach, how many of you had, what's the single most important lesson you learned from that coach, and how
Yeah.
did you apply it?
Yeah.
What'd you do with it? How'd you teach somebody else? How did you affect somebody else because of that? Because that to me is the power of if my coach teaches me something, if I learn something from you, and then I go apply it and it works, and then I help somebody use that knowledge, that's what a coach is supposed to do.
This is one
So
of the areas, Scott, where I was not getting hired as a coach and all that kind of stuff because when people would say, great, it sounds awesome, like, what are we going to do together? Like, what are you going to show me? And I would not have the answer because I never had frameworks. And I remember, I don't know, it must have been almost 10 years ago now, somebody said, you're really good, but you don't have frameworks. And so when you get on a call with a coach and you go and they're like, oh, it doesn't matter, we'll just meet and we'll just talk. There's places for that, right? But what we're talking about here is like, you want a strategist, you want somebody to move you from A to B. They need frameworks. They have to show you where you're going. And I don't know how you feel about that, but for me, it's huge. And I know that a lot of people do not have frameworks, or they steal other people's frameworks, and I can call them out like right away. Say, yeah, right. So that's yours. There was a huge thing with Alex Sharfin, who's now a good friend of mine. I'll name drop there. Who has the billionaire code, and somebody ripped off his whole thing, and said it for himself. It was a big thing, and it was like the person is also huge, who ripped it off. And like, are you kidding me? Like, do you know who, first of all, you're ripping it off from? This is Alex Sharfin, is the dude who speaks to the whole, the click funnels. Like, everybody, who this person is, and the person who ripped it off is also huge, claiming it. I'm like, this is the kind of stuff that,
So, Joe,
when you have a framework and you rip it off from somebody else, that's why I'm saying you have to know your industry.
well, and that's another interesting question that can be asked is, and this comes straight from thinking of you, is what are the names of your frameworks, processes, and systems that you've developed? And you would be like, oh, listen, Message Navigator and client, messages and DNA and that, all of the things, like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And as opposed to, oh yeah, I use the thingy template thingy. Everybody uses that. Oh yeah, but I use a little bit differently. Instead of, no, I created all these things. Here's my unique process. Goes to superpowers. What is your unique process? So what is your unique process system that you've developed from all this expertise that's going to help me? A bot's going to have, or the normal person's not going to be able to come up with that, because like you said, they're using somebody else's thing that they purchased to then go resell to somebody, because they were told if they bought the whole program and the bonus, that then they could go become a coach and sell it to other people. And that's not what we want. We want somebody it's okay to buy a coaching program to learn how to be a coach, and then go out and coach and figure it out and go do your research and start little and help people and get success. That's how you have to be good at anything. But don't go out and be a C player and claim to be an A player. Like,
yeah, well, when I was first getting into this, the first like official coaching thing that I wanted to do was with Brendan Burchard, with his High Performance Academy, right? And he has his whole framework, and that was the thing that I would need to follow. And that's fine. If you're following somebody else's framework and you're part of that team or whatever, however it works, and that's one thing. But I'm talking about even if you rename it, like you could take Atlas, or you could take, like, my framework, really, if somebody says, how do you help me move from this to that? I would say, well, there's three things. I'm going to get you real clear on who your dream client truly is. I'm going to be clear on who you are, so that you can, connect with those people, which brings me to the next piece, which is connection. So I'm going to help you connect now with the right dream clients, and then I'm going to help you communicate with those dream clients. That's the process, right? So, and that's the heart-centered marketing system, basically. If they say, well, how do you help me clarify? Well, then I can go into Dream Client DNA and I can get into the tools of the thing. But anybody could say that. Then anybody say, well, I'm going to help you get clear. I'm going to help you do this. I'm going to help you do that. And I'm going to help you do this, and take one of my frameworks, whatever, or a piece of the frameworks, and teach it and use it, and still say, this is mine, or this is how I do it. But if anybody knows, they're going to say, well, isn't that Joey's? Like, isn't that the same, right? It's a difference if you say, well, I'm using Joey's thing because I love this.
Yeah. It's like when I share Superpower Matrix, it's from Joey Ragona, because it's your thing. It's what it is. So I'm not going to call it anything different and say, hey, I'm going to call it the Superpower Nova, and I'm going to change it this word and that. No, it's because that's where I learned it from. And you put it together from your knowledge in that. So why wouldn't I say that? You've got chain of beliefs. I've tweaked it a little bit, but it's kind of like based on Joey's chain of beliefs. My 18
yeah.
steps.
So like, speaking of chain of beliefs, like, that one isn't even, I learned that from Rich Sheffer, and I always say that. I don't know where he learned it. I think Todd Brown came with it. I don't remember where it first came out, but I've actually, so now by teaching it so many, because it's not mine, it's part of Atlas, yes, but it's part of it. I've taught it so many times. Like the only IP I have to that chain of beliefs are the 3 points that I've put in. right? Which is the bar stool moment, the differentiator, and the tipping point. That's my IP added onto the chain of beliefs. But
Yeah.
that's what we're talking about. So you can adapt things but it's when somebody like, with Alex and all, you just rip the thing off and you start teaching it. And that's what I'm talking about, calling people out and fake coaches who they can't think for themselves, which is part, again, going down this other rabbit hole, which is, a good coach to me is somebody who's adaptable, somebody who has they have a framework, but they're also adaptable. And not so much that they're like doing it for everybody, because that's a whole other discussion, right? Who do you help? Well, what do you do? Well, that's who I can help. I can help you there, right?
Right.
We won't go down that one, because as soon as somebody says that, thank you very much, I got to go, right? But you can adapt. You can say, well, I'll give you an example, because you brought up the message navigator or something. Okay, so somebody might say to me, I'll go, well, I'm going to help you communicate with people, and here I do the message navigator, and it's usually through a chat that you're having with me. Well, I don't want to be on Facebook. I don't want to be on chat. That's okay. We can still use it over here. We can still, right? So it's adaptable. You don't have to. You're not in this rigid system that you're making the thing available. You're smart enough. That's the whole thing. You're smart enough to take the thing and adapt it to the client's needs. Whereas fake coaches and all that, who just read a book, read a chapter ahead or whatever, they're like, wait a minute, I don't know what you're talking about. It says chat here, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, Joey,
anyway, go.
When you take somebody else's process and steal it, by stealing it, it's what you're talking about. I'm going to put you through
It's a
this
blatant steal. Yeah.
Right. I'm going to put you through this process. Great. But what happens when I go off the path during that process? You don't know what to do because you haven't used the process 100 times or 1,000 times and figured it out, and put some of your own IP in where your audience, your market, your people. It's like I took, I got Brendan's High Performance, and I also got Total Product Blueprint. And in Total Product Blueprint, there were 12 ways that you could make money online, whether it was books or CDs. And I did one or two of them. And the one of them was to build, a little course and a little mini funnel thingy back then. And it worked. And it kind of became knowledge of a foundation. But I don't think I've ever taught anybody his thingy. I went through it so many times, to the framework and the outline and how he did it. And with all that, and then I just kind of took what I liked best and put it in mine. But even if I did, I would say, I'm going to show you today this based on Joey's chain of beliefs. And he got it from Rick Shepard. And, this is kind of my interpretation of it. It's the same premise, and this is his tipping point and his must-have. And, the whole emotional piece of in the beginning. That was, when we started on the calls, it came with that. Because I think you get more respect that way also. Because there's no way I came up with all this stuff. No way.
Yeah, for sure. Another question I like to ask is, like, in regards to the strategy, like you already kind of talked about it. So I just want to make sure that we're sharing these things with everybody. Is like, tell me about the time that you changed somebody, or how did you help them? What is the strategy that you used, and how did it turn out? So what is the time that you tried to change somebody and made them change? What is the strategy, and how did it turn out? So if somebody asked me that question, I would say 2 stories. I would always give them the not so good story.
Yeah.
Because again, that's what they're expecting. They're expecting, well, this is how I transformed Scott. I told him to do a landing page thing, and he sold it out in less than a week. Like, that's a great story. But then there's also this other thing where I tried this over here and that didn't work. It kind of sucked, right?
Yeah.
So you want a coach who again, that's an A player. An A player is someone who admits their failures, who can go back in and say, this is what I learned from it, and this is what I would never do again, or what I would do differently. So in the time remaining, I want to talk a little bit about VAs, because that's a big one. And we may have discussed this before, but I learned, and I forget who told me, but I'm going to give Giovanni credit for this one, because I was in his synergy group where We talked about VAs, and he might have been the one, but I don't know. There was maybe some of the experts. I can't remember. Anyway, it's not me. I found that there's two distinct categories of VAs. One is the VA is they're we'll just call them head. So they think, they take over something, and then there's hands. And there's a big problem because when people think about VAs, they're like, oh, I'm going to hire Scott to go do this thing, do my marketing, expecting that you're doing the marketing. But most VAs are not that person to take over the department of marketing. And there's this misinterpretation of what the VA is supposed to do because the client, us, we mess it up. We're not asking the right questions, or we don't know what we're looking for, and we're not very clear. So when you're looking for a VA, the first thing, because most of the problem I see with VAs and conflict is our fault. The people who are hiring the VAs, not the VAs. Okay, because their job is their job. So most VAs are really hands-on, tactical people. Like you want me to run your Facebook ads? I'll run my Facebook. I'll run your Facebook ads. But running Facebook ads doesn't mean they know how to write copy, it doesn't necessarily mean they know how to write copy. They know who the avatar, all the dream client stuff, all that stuff. They just know how to run the Facebook ads, right? They're not there to make the decision based on should you stop running that ad or should you not run that ad, right? And read all the analytics and all that kind of stuff. And this is what people start to hire those people for, saying that VA sucks. My Facebook ads aren't working. Well, that's not their job. So I'll stop there and let you input there.
100% agreement is, I think, when people get into this online world and they go into the communities and they get their bright, shiny objects and all the software and tools and the things that they don't know how to run, and then they know that they have to do this and they have to do marketing, you're so right. That's such a separation. I was on a coaching call the other day, my coach, and it was like, if you can write great copy and you can be a marketer, you are so in demand because you can't, it's so rare to do both. And VAs, yes, they get good at some skill, some Facebook ads, Google AdWords, building WordPress sites, whatever it is, building email sequences. But then when you ask them to do the creative genius part, not saying they can't, but most of them, as you said, are hands, not heads. They can't think and take over. That's a much higher skill level. You can't expect to pay for a high level of skill in an A player who's going to help you with your marketing, with your copy, with your ads, what your Facebook images look like, and what your little reels and stories and whatever the appropriate medium is for that ad. You got to have the creative genius who knows how to do that, so that when the VA who knows how to do the ad campaign in Facebook and how to do it and how to work it and how to fix it and tweak it and look at it and they play the algorithm game, that's what you want.
Now we're talking about creative. You're mixing ideas here. Because if you know how to do the algorithm and all that kind of stuff, that's not a task person. Like running it is like, okay, here's all the copy, here's the thing. I'm going to set it in here. I know what to click and just press go, and that's it. Their job is not to go in and analyze it. That's a completely different person.
Right. Not analyzing it. More of, here's the budget. We're going to run this many times and that. Just more of the mechanics. I'll take the word algorithm out.
Yeah, it's delegation. It's go run these for me. And then you go in like maybe once a week or something as an example of this and say, okay, you see ads 4, 7, and 21? I need those turned off.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? I just stop those running by blah, 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 whatever it is. And that's what their job is. So like the hands VA is more delegation. And this is where people get this wrong, because even if they say, oh yeah, I got it. I'm delegating that. The delegation involves you. You have to understand that. You are still in part of that process, okay? Which means that if I hired you to run my Facebook ads or whatever, then I'm still in the process of it. For whatever area of it is. I'm not handing Facebook marketing to you. That's not what you're doing. If I hire a Facebook marketer, Okay, that's the heads person who now takes over my department of running Facebook ads. That's a department in my business where then they will go and find their own VAs to actually do all the task stuff. But they're doing all the creatives and should it be $1 a day? Should it be right? Should it be an a buy, whatever. They're
Yep.
taking that entire department over so you don't do it anymore. That's a completely different animal. That's where the heads come in. And that still could
Yep.
be a VA in a company and all that.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree. Yeah. There's companies out there that do it and do it well and have the different things. But again, it's building up to that. I believe I've got to know enough to be dangerous so that when I do get somebody else to do it, at least I know the questions to ask, the things to look at, rather than just here, I don't know what I'm doing, you do it. That's
Yeah.
dangerous all.
And so, like, with the questions now that I have for VAs or somebody who's doing task work or something for me, then they're pretty simple. So instead of this is where again you can find B and A players. C and A players like in this category because there's a ton of people who will help you, and if they're C players, then they're always looking for guidance, right? They're always looking for how do I do that again, or they just don't get it. Like they've done it a billion times, and they continue to ask the same question again and again and again. So you're not you don't have any help. You actually have you're babysitting. It's even worse because you're like, this is how you do it. And then you're spending hours explaining it to them, thinking that you're buying back time because they're actually doing the thing. But you've been on there every single week showing them how to do it. Right. So that's one of the things. So one of the things that I like to do is to say to them, okay, at the end of the day, send me a report or send me a message or something and tell me where you have challenges. What was a challenge that came up today for you? And just write it down. Like, just send me a message of that. And what did you get done today? What did you do? And where was the challenge? And so if the challenge obviously comes up every single day, the same thing, that's a C player. And if it's here's what I got done, and it's very little things, and again, another C player. So very simple one-touch things back and forth. What did you get done today? And where do you need more clarity, or where do you need help on the thing? What challenge came up for you today that I could answer? And so that's what you're looking for, because an A player in any capacity takes the ball and runs with it. Any input there? I hear you typing away. I don't know if you're typing stuff down or.
At the end of the day, send me a report, message, where have you challenges? What came up today? Write it down.
Cool.
What did you get done today? That's what I was writing down. If it's
I
the
love
same
it.
challenge every day, it's a C player. Where do you need more help or clarity? I've heard that one before.
Yeah.
And yeah, A player takes the ball and runs with it. When your stuff is good, which most of it is, I want to type it and put it down so that I
Amazing.
can time this comes up, I've got a place to go find it. That's why you open all of Joey's emails, because you never know what gold's going to be hidden
What? Yeah.
underneath.
Cool, man. Thanks. Any last input there? Hopefully this was helpful for everyone. If you are watching live, let us know by hashtag live and hashtag replay. By the way, I'm going to give our Facebook group a little bit of a plug, which is where heart-centered, amazing people join in that group. Small, curated group. If you're heart-centered and you really want to get a simplified business with amazing people to support you, not coming into a group to get pitched, that is where you go.
Yep, nobody's going to sell you anything. There's no coaching services to buy. There's no courses to invest in. There's no email sequences once you get in. It's just support from heart-centered people that want to support each other and take this game we play to a level that makes it enjoyable to have a dream business with a dream life with dream clients.
Thanks, Matt. All right. Any final words? How was that for you? Did you learn anything?
I did. I learned a few of the questions, and once again, your genius in frameworks is, next time I either need to share this with somebody or use it, it's like, oh, it's right over there. That's it. The value of showing up.
Yeah, for sure, man. All right. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here live with us. Thank you for being here on the replay. We will see you next Tuesday. And if you have any questions that come up while you're watching this again, let us know in the chat, because there's a few pages of questions and ideas that I have here that we didn't really get to, a lot of it, but that's okay. It can come up in the conversation in the chat, and we'll be here to answer anything for you. So we'll see you next Tuesday night.